I'm joined by Johannes from Avatar. Mate, it seems like a weird point in human history to be saying it's been a good week, but after seeing the reaction to God of Sick Dreams last week, it was quite overwhelming on my timeline just how into it your fan base were. What's your feelings on releasing that track from Hunter Gatherer and how people have taken to it?
Well, this is a better question than you'd think. Well, because it is like you say, this whole thing of everything going on in the world, and if you mix that with the fact that I have heard the song many times already, long before it was put out, then I like to have that little ritual of giving it a listen on some kind of official platform as well, to see it's out there. No, it's what can I say? It was good. It was nice, and it was that combined, I guess, with the reactions for Silence in the Age of Apes, like those two punches to people's faces in a row, has been really nice to see, and that people are all in all describing the music the way we view it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like when I look at like your records, always are quite varied and go into different places and portions of your sound. So I guess what I'm going to ask is, these two tracks that we've heard so far, how much do they tell us about Hunter Gatherer as a wider picture?
They tell a fair share of they give away a fair share of what the album is about, meaning it's all based on that riff, and it's heavy and aggressive, and it's dark, and lyrically they're like right there at the crossroads of where your inner being is clashing with the whole world and universe. So in that sense, I guess it tells a lot about the album as a whole, while at the same time they're both very, very driven, aggressive songs. And I guess we have more what you would maybe call groovy things as well, heavy things as well, and mellow things, So in that sense, you're really just getting one slice of it, because like you described us, we like to write different songs every time. I only ever find there's only a reason to write each song once.
There's a lot of talking about concepts and creation of the outside world when it comes to Avatar traditionally. So when you talk about the inner self battling the outer world, like, is Hunter Gatherer a more autobiographical record, like a bit more personal to you, Johannes, than usual?
Not really, but at the same time, yeah, because I guess it's more blatantly so.
Right.
This time, there's no metaphor hidden, where the truth is hidden behind stories about an owl. There's no, it's not clad in this veil of comedy this time. So in that sense, yes, I think that goes all hand in hand with how we think the process. If you write music the way our ambition is to write it, and that is to always find a way to feel like a beginner, to make it feel new and important and urgent to do this. One thing I guess you have to do is find another layer as you get older, is find another layer of bullshit to peel off from that onion of, your inner essence, your inner onion. And I think this was definitely a lot of steps forward in that direction, where, I've never felt dishonest in what I put on an album, but, with the years comes less and less time is being wasted at being self-conscious, and more of it is being spent trying to get to the bottom of whatever you're trying to say, or getting to the core of it. And sometimes that core is totally abstract, and sometimes it's very concrete. But I think I have better access to it than ever before, and
So
all of us as a band.
you mentioned like wanting to feel like a beginner and like keeping things fun. Like you recorded the record again with the great Jay Ruston. When you talk about doing things that make you feel like a beginner, what I wanted to ask you about Hunter Gatherer is, what have you done that is completely new for Avatar? Is there anything on this record that you've tried your hand at that is completely unique in your back catalogue?
The most blatant thing must be, the fact that there's a very, very mellow, vulnerable piano, I guess you would call it ballad, on its subject-wise. And again, it's shining a different kind of light on still things that I feel is Avatar territory. But on the surface, at least, very much, it's something you would recognize, something you won't immediately recognize, as an Avatar thing. Then, and the way we perceive it with the stuff we make, it makes complete sense. But the make people cry piano ballad is on this album. Maybe someone longed for that one. Maybe we're bumming someone else. I don't know.
What was the excitement like for doing that? And where does the inspiration come for doing that? Like you say, on the surface level, it will make sense to the Avatar community. What's beneath the surface on that song?
I think being vulnerable, like it's musically, again, it's a vulnerable sounding song, but I think the whole thing is about vulnerability. That's a wonderful word for a Swede to pronounce, vulnerability. And it's kind of dealing with, I guess, in a way, like how to open up to the world, how the pain of giving someone the ability to hurt you, but maybe the necessity of in life to give people that ability, because there's so much that comes with the territory, if you get what I mean. So it's really, I think that's one of the reasons you do such a mellow poetic song about it, because it moves in a dark and very it's very complicated. The angry songs is easier. What are you pissed off about? Well, I saw all these pictures of dead seabirds with a belly full of plastic. That's fucked up. That's an easier spark for something. And this is really trying to deconstruct something about loss and mistakes and regret. And again, like how love can be weaponized, I guess.
And it's easier to handle sadness with anger than it is for sadness to come to the fore. The thing is, it's crazy to be going down this direction, because when I look at an Avatar album is coming out in early August, my gut instinct was like, thank God that there's a bit of fun coming. Because, you're quite right to say heaviness and to say darkness and to say groove about your music. But, I talk to 5 musicians a week for this show, and you get people that have, got a steely intensity and it's all over their music. And then there's bands that have more technicolor. Is it fair to say that that's what Avatar bring? And it's kind of, for me personally, it's kind of a good time to be getting some fun escapism and some Avatar in our lives.
Yeah, well, that's the weird thing with us, right? Because we're still not. Well, what band should I bring as example? Ailstorm is singing about pirates. It's still, if you really go back and look at what the songs have been about, it's there's always been that layer of sincerity and seriousness in it that then has gone in hand with where the fun and technicolor comes in, is embracing, insanity, embracing yourself, I guess, and a whole lot of things. Like we are a strange band. We realize it, and we like it. It's weird. Like it's weird to look at yourself from the outside like that. But I don't know. Like Let Us Die on Black Walls. I learned about how in certain regions of the world, mass rape was used as a weaponized strategy, a way to ruin communities that you were at war with. And around the time of the writing of those lyrics is when it finally became, according to the Security Council in the United Nations, a war crime, where it could persecute officers for the crimes of the soldiers in that sense, because if you can prove that that was done on order of someone. And so there's no lack of that in our back catalog either.
Yeah.
Then, of course, Avatar Country happened. But also prior to that, Feathers and Flesh happened, which is interesting, because if you really delve into what the lyrics are about, the journey, how it all ends, we did an album about failure. We did an album about death, fear of death, and about regrets. And then, however, there was bees. There were bees and a pike and an eagle and an owl and all these other things. And as we started to work in such a conceptual way, and as we started to react against, I guess, rebel against people's expectations of what a metal band was supposed to be, all the fun and silliness became, sword and shield in how we approach the world. And none of that is still, I guess, going away. The whole thing with Avatar, I guess, is we do the music we do because that's what we want to do, and what we want to do changes ever so slightly all the time. But we are very committed to the fact that Avatar is metal music.
Yeah,
and then we are a theater group, and this is not a concept album, but we treat things that we do very much as a concept. Like the band is as a whole is a concept, and therefore we are working in very theatrical ways with things, and there the fun and games spill in anyway, I guess. But right now the focus is on something more pitch black, and it's unrelated to what goes on in the world. There's always something pitch black to deal with. It has a lot to do with what's going on in the world, but not necessarily just right at the moment of the release of the album. I just think also because we really felt, okay, now let's get the humor out of our systems. That was one of the things that led to Avatar Country. As we did that, we also suppressed all that energy that we otherwise would process with our music. I took a self-therapy gap year, basically.
Yeah.
And now it's all coming out.
Well, I mean, that leads into asking about. So again, I'm lucky enough to get to chat to people before their records come out, and I always love getting to do the Rammstein chats, because when you talk to Richard from Rammstein, and he talks about when you create a record, Rammstein albums also have this other world that is videos, that is a stage show, and your band came to mind as well. And with this being after your self-therapy session, and this definitely sounds from your words like a more intense record. What is the overall look and kind of the things about this record outside of the music? I ask that because in the Silence in the Age of Apes video, you've got that overalls look, and I think it looks so badass, and I wondered if it's
I got it right here, actually. Hold on.
No way.
Yeah. Thing is, as I live, you just gave away the scoop also, the fact that when you're doing these kind of webcam things. You don't really care what pants you're wearing. At least I was wearing. No, the thing is, as I live in Helsinki, we had to figure out ways of making music videos right now when we can't really travel to see each other. So what you got here? I'm not putting it on right now.
Yeah.
They already smell. Of course, the leather is fake for anyone wondering, but it's basically, like I said, overalls.
Yeah.
And I'm a tall bloke, and combines like it's clothing, like the idea to be clothes that you wear for work, and it's something to be used on a farm, down in the mines, in a machine room. Again, it's trying to touch more on something that is part of, that is down on earth. But at the same time, there's this once it touches your body, there's some sense of sexual taboo in it as well. And just very, very metal. Let me show the coat.
Yeah, go for it, man. The scoop I didn't know we were getting. I love it.
We have pictures published of them already, but still. And because the backside, it was one of those things where all the different ideas that, the instructions that we gave to Michaela Magnusson, who does it, all boiled down to I was in her apartment trying it and putting it on when it was half done. And it's so damn metal.
Yeah.
It's so very, I feel like I should, some kind of biker from a cyberpunk future. I don't know. But again, we wanted something that I guess the marriage between doing an album that deals with, again, we're back on Earth, we're dealing with dark shit and stuff that is very personal and feels very complicated to try to untangle and unpack and just process, and it's very aggressive. And you marry that with, again, that Avatar is also theater. And that's a very important aspect of what we are and always will be. So it still needs to be larger than life, theatrical, whoever. What do you mean less is more? More is more presentation.
I always love asking this. Your influences outside of the world of music when it comes to the visuals, is there anything that's at the forefront of your mind when you think about the look that is coming for Hunter Gatherer when it comes to things outside of music, movies, video games, whatever? Like, it feels like you're beating Cyberpunk 2077, the massive video game that's coming to the punch with your look.
Haven't played that yet. Obviously it's not out yet, right?
Yeah, it's got a while before it's out.
I hope it would be convenient if it came out before we were able to tour again. I have to try to remember now, because it was, again, an essential. There can be a couple of snippets of things, like one film we tend to go back to for different reasons throughout the last bunch of years is the old silent movie Metropolis. And there you have those in long rows, the factory workers on the clock. Chaplin's Modern Times. It's actually a lot of silent movie era things that then marries itself. When you say cyberpunk, for instance, one of the insights, I guess, that kind of informed the way the aesthetic and the lyrics, the musical content of this album, how it came together, is the fact that, from time to time, I returned to one of my most significant gateway drugs to extreme music, which was The Manufacturer by Fear Factory. And then when you look at that whole era and look at the idea of technology as horror, it suddenly kind of feel like we live in the world they were warning us about, don't we? Yeah. Are we there now?
Absolutely. This is a real life Black Mirror episode.
Yeah, exactly. The funny thing now with us being a bit hyped for a cyberpunk game is that we kind of are living in that cyberpunk world, and it's just that it's a bit more boring than in the movies. You know,
Yeah. They didn't sell us this in the Jetsons, did they?
no, exactly, and that's because I don't know, I'm in a privileged enough position to be, you know, seated where I am, so I can make jokes about it being boring. But it's either that, or for those who can't be bored by it, it's incredibly painful and atrocious.
Mm.
You know, if you want to paint it all in a black light, cool things happen too. You know, I'm here at home, not touring, so I saw spring and summer arrive, and I'm looking at a lot of sea life and watching birds, and they had all the babes have hatched, so that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't see that from the inside of a tour bus. I know where you're coming from.
Exactly. No, I'm just.
So, final question from me before I let you go. Like, it feels like a horrible time to be talking about touring, right? But like, when the world starts turning again and you are on a stage, are you excited about what you've put together for the Hunter Gatherer album cycle? Because like, there's one thing getting an Avatar record and getting to live with that art, but there's another thing to get to an Avatar show and it be a new show. What's coming? Like, what can you tell us without spoiling it?
Well, let me put it like this: our way of thinking about how to present, how to visualize the music and express it is, if what we did on stage with Avatar Country, and you know, an ongoing theme for most bands, at least for us, I guess, is that whatever you are putting out right now is a reaction to what came just before. And I think what we did on stage with Avatar Country was in a way quite pornographic. It was very, you know, in your face, and like pornographic, very a throwback to the 80s with elevators and stuff. And the way our way of thinking right now is to look at I can't pronounce it. That's correct.
Eroticism.
Eroticism.
Yeah.
Rather than pornography, which means that you work in more subtle ways. You activate more parts of your brain, more parts of your imagination, and draw you in that way. And hopefully, once things get going, it's more real. It hits you deeper, and the trip is different like that. This is a very abstract way of describing it. Of course, I get it, but you know, it's gonna want to mess with your brain more. I guess another way of difference would be the difference between splatter horror, brain dead, and then, some kind of psychological horror like The Shining. You know,
gotcha.
What it all builds to one axe murder.
Like, you're going to make the audience feel like voyeurs, is what you're saying.
Yeah, you know, to that human aspect of it that feels like a very important part of this album, that needs to be there, and that would make it more, you know, closer. Again, the stage outfit, in a way, once the coat comes off, it is a bit more. It's not undressed as in any, you know, it wouldn't work in a strip club, but still, it brings you. With a poofy shirt and jacket and vests and stuff, it's still more distance. This is still just the clothes we wear brings us more skin to skin with the audience, I think. So there is that aspect of it. And yeah, again, it's more erotic than pornographic, which takes a little bit more, but then will bring you way further and it hit you way deeper. That's the ambition.
Well, keep your stage outfits for if you ever have to work the strip clubs after Avatar is finished. Johannes, it's so nice to finally meet you, mate.
Nice to meet you too.
When the record is out in early August, come back and we can do another chat once I've heard the record, and we can get inside the art and talk about the ballad and the album itself. So, thanks so much for taking the time, man.